Today on House of Cards. Season 1 left us with impeccable storylines only becoming cliffhangers by the end, with Frank Underwood becoming the VP, Zoe getting closer to uncovering the truth about the choices Frank has made, which has led to master manipulation and murder. Peter Rousseau's antics hovering over everyone else. It begs the question, will the dots connect, and will someone listen? Lives are lost, people grieve, but Frank Underwood is just getting started. Picking up where Season 1 left off really tells you a lot about how this show is going to play out. It's going to painstakingly show you how things will go in Frank Underwood's eyes. Through his master manipulation, he makes his way to vice president. The trick is, though, Season 2, Episode 1 is the game changer of everything, and it's the moment that when it turns on you, you're gonna realize if this is a show for you or not. The story shifts when Zoe is really no longer the driving force into trying to uncover what Frank is trying to do. Instead, it shifts to someone close to her, Lucas. Lucas gets involved with something that changes into something bigger to where you see where that kind of plays out in the White House, and you definitely see who else is pulling the strings beyond Frank. I mean, let's face it, from any other standpoint, when you are as high as the vice president and you got a story against you, you pretty much have to kill it everywhere you can. From episode 1, when episode 2 hits, you have to understand things slow down a bit. Like, it doesn't screech to a halt, but it does have to get more intellectually driven. So when Frank becomes vice president, you realize he can't do much at all without really getting in trouble. So he has to do things a lot more at a deliberate pace. But it did get to me for a point. So I'm just like, oh my god, it was exciting in the first episode, and now it just went, no, we're gonna slow down. But once you figure out where Frank has to build bridges instead of burn them, you realize this is all kind of being set up for more future episodes. This is set up for mostly the season because it does pick up later on. But this really shows a side of Frank that brings out a much more humble side. He's brutal, sure, don't get me wrong, but he also has to keep his word on a lot more longer term because he is vice president. Still doesn't change the fact that not a lot of people like him, and that mostly goes into a episode that's one of my favorites, which is Chapter 17, but it's Episode 4, where an anthrax threat surprisingly arises to where Frank Underwood is stuck inside a room with Donald Blythe. Donald Blythe does not like Frank, and they've got to try and pass this bill. In the bill, Frank wants to be approved by Donald Blythe's approval, but it's not going to work out. So just as soon as things were going to be ended as quickly as they began, suddenly this anthrax threat hits, and these two are stuck in a room together, and they cannot leave. And at that same time, Frank is going to be late for not only this bill meeting, but also he's going to be late for this interview that he's supposed to be with Claire. Claire has to do this interview by herself, and when she does this interview, she leaves some very incriminating things out into the public with her shocking past details. And the season did plant it early on in the beginning of Season 2. That doesn't make it seem like it was shoehorned, but it was raw, revealing, and very progressive, this episode, I should say. Because while you get to see a personal side of Frank, you get a personal side of Donald, you get a personal side of Claire, even with this new House Majority Whip that took over Frank's position, Jackie, you see where she's going, and it's very interesting to see how she comes into her own, kind of claiming, hey, look, guys, I'm not Frank Underwood. I'm trying to be my own self, so you either give me respect, or we're going to go round and round, and you're not going to like it. Overall, it's definitely one of my favorite episodes. I love it when characters are stuck together and cannot leave due to a certain situation or reason. Now, I will say, in terms of characters, there are a lot that take the spotlight, and you're not sure exactly where they're going. The new House Majority Whip, Jackie, takes some bit of screen time. She's definitely going to be making her way up as her own character. A favorite character of mine, though, has to be Doug Stamper. Not because he shares the same name as me, but because he has an arc here more than he does in the first season, dealing with his position with Frank and how it gets to him. Like, things start getting pretty intense, especially from the reporter side trying to uncover the story. Doug deals with a couple of the details that keep the reporters from really understanding what's going out, and it really affects him. Doug really does shine as some guy who's loyal to Frank Underwood, but is starting to crumble just a little bit because of his past, because of the things that are happening now. But you see where he starts to falter, and then becomes strong with Frank's trust. By the finale, you kinda understand where things might be going, and you definitely get the end result by the final scene of season 2. Frank gets what he wants, but not without making the most potent challenges. The last minute or so definitely makes you feel every moment in silence, and as soon as the screen goes dark, you either go, yeah, okay, things are really gonna pick up by season 3, right? Or you're kind of like, I really don't know where this is going to go now. This is crazy. And it gave me a shot of anxiety. And that was me. I was like, oh, I am disgusted, I am repulsed, and yet I cannot look away. But it makes you feel that every moment you sat through in this season that was either boring or confusing, worth it. Like, absolutely worth it. You see that final scene finally come into play, and it nails it home. It's incredible. If you're with the story, you'll realize how crazy it will become, and it's not like the show wasn't trying to warn you in the first place. I mean, literally, the first episode of season 2 pans down to cufflinks of Frank Underwood's initials and says F you. Seriously, take that as a hint. Season 2 picks up where it left off, but it stays right where it needs to and keeps the story building for the future of its run. It does take a dip in pacing, some character moments that lead into scenes like this unexpected threesome that happens. It was a little unnecessary for me, a little bit too much for my taste, but it was a deeper look into some of these characters' personal lives. Didn't always leave a resonating feel for me, but it did have its moments of being very powerful. So for that, I'm going to give House of Cards Season 2 an A minus. This continues my entire review set of House of Cards. I just now did season 2. I'm going to be doing season 3 throughout season 5's run, so please bear with me here. I'm still trying to catch up and all that stuff, but I will definitely get you season 5 probably before the week is through. I'm not sure yet. Please be patient with me, but I do want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will get you more videos in the future.